Okay, the first thing you're going to do in order to create this slipper is to take a pencil with some paper and you're going to measure your foot. Yes, your individual foot. Look at my pretty ones. You're going to take about a half of an inch out on all sides. Now, I didn't do about a half of an inch, but I want you to measure about maybe a half an inch wider than what your foot is so that it won't be too tight or too small. You want to do that for both feet. All right, also here are my bare paws here, or my feet, or my foot markings for my left and my right. So I traced it in marker just so you can see it better. And then I labeled it because I like to label my things. So cut 2 of your left foot and I put a line, cut 2 of your right foot and put a line. So we'll cut these out in just a moment. Also, if you look in the comments, I will have a downloaded piece of, this is the top of the slipper. So you can download this and cut it out. This is for size 9 or size 9 in women or under. So if you are size 9 or under, then this will fit. Otherwise, you will just have to extend the ends to make it a little bit longer for your longer foot. Or if you have a shorter foot, then you may have to cut it just a little bit so that it can fit your foot. All right. Okay, so I have my fabric here and I have doubled my fabric, and here are my cutout pieces. Okay, here are my cutouts. So I'm gonna put them close to the edge and I cut 2 right, 2 left, and then I'll cut my 4 of these. So I'm gonna cut 2 and then I'll cut another 2 because it can be kind of thick if you try to cut 4 at the same time. So let me get my pen. So here are my scissors. Let me go ahead and cut. Okay, everyone, I have everything cut out. So I have 2 rights. I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top slipper, and then 2 of the left. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna take my right and my left slipper here. I'm gonna put the right size together. I'm gonna take my slipper here and I'm going to put the wrong size together. The wrong size are the sides that look the faded or the dullest, and then the right sides look the most amazing, right? So I'll put the wrong sides together. So this should be a right side and this should be a right side, and those are the wrong sides. So I put the wrong sides together, and same here. That's the wrong side because it's dull, and this is the right side. So I put the wrong sides together, and I'll take my pins and I'm just gonna pin the slipper to itself. Like such. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is take it over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to sew a 2/8 seam allowance all the way around. Okay guys, so I'm going to do a 2/8 seam allowance. Now if I look on my machine, I do not have the marks, and yours may not have the marks either. So usually my 2/8 is, I'm looking at the side, the end of the presser foot. Let's do it. So I did one. It's not perfect, but it'll work, right? Let's do the other one. Okay, the left one is done also. So let's move on. All right, everyone. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my top of the slipper and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put the right sides together. So this is the right side because it looks really pretty, and this is the wrong side because it looks dull. So I'm going to put my two right sides of each piece together. So the dull side should be on the outside, or the side that doesn't look as well. Put that on the outside. Sometimes your fabric doesn't have a right or wrong side, so then you just do what you do. So I'm going to pin the inner U. Okay, so now I'm going to sew at a 2/8 seam allowance. So let's go to the sewing machine and get it done. So the next thing we're going to do is turn it inside, turn the right sides out. So if you watch closely, I'm just going to turn it so that the right sides are together. So, yep, just turn it so the right sides are together and matching. On themselves. Like that. So this is the wrong side now, and then this is the right side. Okay, now that you have turned it on the inside, you're going to take your seams here at the end. You're going to match your seam, which means put it together like this. And then with the right sides, you're going to put the right sides together like this. And then you put the right sides together. So I'm looking at the wrong side. And what I'm going to do is pin the ends and sew these. Now, usually I try to match the seams together as close as possible so that it looks really nice. But if it's kind of off, you know, this is a beginner slipper. It's not a big deal. Now, before you stitch your seam, I take the slipper and put the top of the slipper atop, and I match the seam of the sole to the top slipper, because you may have to take this inner seam that I'm touching, you may have to take it in just a bit depending on your shoe size. All right, so I have my piece here, and I'm going to sew on the pin marks. I'm going to do a back stitch. When I get to this seam, I'm going to pick up my needle, pick up my presser foot and just turn it a little bit. Okay, so I'll do this on the other slipper also, and let's move on. Okay, so the ends are the ends are sewn, and all I do is, just push it out. So now it's starting to look like a real shoe, right? So now it's kind of having that dimension. So the next thing I'm going to do for my beginner sewers is I'm going to stitch around the top slipper as I did with this part of the sole. It's just easier to connect everything if you're a beginner. If you're not a beginner, then you don't have to necessarily do this step. So I'm going to match the seams here and pin. And I'm pinning all the way around. And so once you do that, you want to do a 1/8 seam allowance all the way around. It's just to keep it together. Okay, so I have my slipper thing, my top slipper here, and I'm just doing a 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, so we did that, and you want to do this to the left slipper also. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do, this is the very last step. You are going to place your top slipper on top of the sole of the slipper and pin all the way around. And this will be the final stitch. You want to make sure that the seam hits the center of the back of the slipper. And you're pinning all the way around. Make sure you match the sole to the top of the slipper. Okay, so I'm going to take my slipper and I'm going to sew it at a 2/8 seam allowance. So I'm going to turn it on the sole side up, and I'm just following the stitch that I created when I did my first sole stitch. Okay, last but not least, we are at the finish line. We're gonna clip the thread that's hanging. Then we'll turn these babies inside out. And there we go. A finished pair of slippers. Enjoy.